I'm a podiatrist in Copenhagen, and last summer, an American tourist limped into my clinic, demanding I write her a medical exemption letter. For what? The city's excessive walking requirements? She'd been in Denmark for 2 days. She was convinced. Copenhagen had a secret minimum daily step count that tourists had to meet, and she was certain she'd seen enforcement officers with clipboards tracking pedestrians. Those were just people with shopping lists. When I explained we simply don't have cars in the city center, she accused me of participating in a mobility rights violation conspiracy and threatened to report Denmark to the Better Business Bureau. I asked which business bureau would have jurisdiction over an entire European country. She said the main one in Delaware. I Googled it. She left my clinic shoeless, claiming Danish sidewalks were engineered to destroy American feet because they're cobblestone instead of asphalt. She's now trying to sue the city for not providing golf cart rentals. Meanwhile, I treated a guy who'd been in Stockholm for 4 hours and had already called an Uber 6 times to go 3 blocks. Each time, he didn't understand why drivers kept canceling. They could see him on the map, standing 900 feet from his destination, during lunch hour in a pedestrian zone. He's left 17 one-star reviews claiming Sweden has weaponized walking. And then there was the woman in Bruges who filed a police report because her hotel was falsely advertised as walkable. It was 400 meters from the train station, in a city that's 430 hectares total. So yes, let's talk about how Americans respond when European cities are designed for human beings instead of Ford F-150s. My cousin works at the Ljubljana Tourism office in Slovenia, and last month, an American couple demanded a refund for their entire trip because the old town is car-free. Not a partial refund. The whole vacation. They'd been there 90 minutes. Their argument was that they'd paid for a European experience, and Europe has cars. So where were the cars? My cousin explained that Ljubljana city center banned vehicles in 2008 to preserve medieval architecture and improve quality of life. The husband said that was communist propaganda, and that he'd read on a forum that European cities only pretend to ban cars to make Americans look bad. He insisted there was a secret road network underneath the pedestrian streets where locals drive, like a car speakeasy. He'd seen a delivery truck that morning and took it as proof that the driving ban is just for tourists. His wife started crying, saying she didn't pack the right shoes for this much walking. And why didn't the travel website warn her that Ljubljana was one of those activist cities? My cousin offered them an electric bike rental. The husband said he doesn't negotiate with bike culture. They demanded to speak to someone from the Slovenian Department of Tourism Fairness. That doesn't exist. They're now disputing the charges, with their credit card company claiming the city wasn't as described. The best part? Their hotel was 200 meters from the castle. 3-minute walk. They took a taxi every single time. The taxi driver told my cousin he had driven them in circles. Twice because the actual route was too short to justify the minimum fare. Then there's my friend who runs a walking tour company in Tallinn, Estonia. American tourist shows up, sees the itinerary is 3 hours, and immediately asks where the shuttle bus picks them up halfway through. There is no shuttle bus. It's a walking tour. The entire concept is walking. She said that's ableist, and accused him of discriminating against Americans with different mobility cultures. He explained that the route is 2.5 kilometers with multiple rest stops and offered to refund her money. She said she didn't want a refund. She wanted him to provide motorized transportation as a reasonable accommodation. He's not running a theme park. He's walking around a medieval town explaining history. She threatened to report him to the Estonian Tourism Board for false advertising, claiming the tour should be called a forced march. She posted a TikTok about it, where she calls Tallinn aggressively walkable and warns other Americans that Europe is hostile to car culture. The comments are full of people saying they had similar experiences and that European cities trauma dumped their anti-car agenda onto innocent tourists. But my absolute favorite is the family in Ghent, Belgium, who rented bikes for the day and then immediately called the rental company demanding they come pick up the bikes and drive them around instead. Why? Because they just realized Ghent's city center is also car-free, and they thought the bikes were just a fun option, not the actual primary mode of transportation. The rental guy explained that bikes are how you get around. Ghent. It's literally one of the most bike-friendly cities in Europe. The dad said he didn't come to Europe to exercise, he came to see culture. And that forcing tourists to bike is a bait-and-switch scam. He wanted a car. The rental guy told him cars aren't allowed. The dad said not even for Americans. As if citizenship grants vehicle exemptions to urban planning laws, they abandoned the bikes in a park and took a taxi to the train station, which was 4 blocks away. They're currently writing a Lonely Planet review warning Americans that Ghent requires physical fitness levels that aren't disclosed up front. I work as a city planner in Lisbon, and we've started getting formal complaints from American tourists about the hills. Not requests for accessibility accommodations. Complaints. As in, they want us to flatten the city. One guy submitted a 47-page proposal to the city council suggesting we install moving sidewalks on every street with an incline greater than 5 degrees. He'd calculated the costs, the engineering requirements, everything. His cover letter said that Lisbon's hills are a structural barrier to tourism revenue, and that we're losing American visitors because we refuse to modernize our topography. He cited San Francisco as proof that hilly cities can fix this problem. I had to write back explaining that San Francisco also has hills, very famous hills. He responded saying that's different because San Francisco has cable cars, which are a reasonable solution, and why don't we just install those? We have trams. He said trams don't count because they're not American style. I don't know what American style means in this context. He's now crowdfunding a Flatten Lisbon campaign on GoFundMe to raise $140. Then we have the ongoing situation in Santorini, Greece, where Americans keep demanding the island install escalators between the old port and Fyra town. There are 600 steps. You can also take a cable car or a donkey. Multiple options. But apparently those aren't good enough because the cable car has a line during peak season and the donkeys are ethically problematic. My friend who works at the port says at least once a week. An American tourist threatens to sue the Greek government for inadequate vertical infrastructure. One woman said the steps violate the Americans with Disabilities Act. She's not American disabled, she's just American. The ADA doesn't apply in Greece. She said it should because human rights are universal. She tried to get the U.S. Embassy involved. They told her to take the cable car. The most recent incident involved a guy who made it up 200 steps, got tired, and called the Santorini police to rescue him. Not because he was injured or having a medical emergency, because he was tired. The police told him to sit down and rest, said that's not a solution, and demanded they send a helicopter. For a voluntary tourist activity, on stairs, that thousands of people climb daily. He's now on a travel blog calling Santorini a hostile fitness test disguised as a vacation destination. But nothing beats the American woman in Prague who tried to get the city to install a chairlift to Prague Castle. She'd walked up the hill once, decided it was too steep, and spent the rest of her trip emailing the Czech Ministry of Culture about accessibility discrimination. Her proposal included architectural drawings she'd made in Microsoft Paint showing where the chairlift should go. Through a UNESCO World Heritage Site, she argued that Disneyland has chairlifts, and Prague Castle gets more visitors than Disneyland. So logically, Prague should have better infrastructure. She calculated that a chairlift would increase American tourism by 340%, and sent this figure to 3 different government agencies. The ministry finally responded, explaining that ski lifts don't typically run through 9th century castles. She replied asking why Europe is stuck in the past and suggesting they study American theme parks to learn proper tourist management. She CC'd the U.S. ambassador. No one ever responded to that email. She's now on TripAdvisor warning Americans that Prague penalizes people who don't train for mountain climbing before vacation. I'm a physical therapist in Cinque Terre, Italy, and last week I treated an American tourist who'd pulled a muscle attempting to sue the hiking trail between villages. Not sue someone on the trail, sue the trail itself. He'd arrived expecting a scenic coastal walk, which is technically accurate, but he thought that meant a flat boardwalk with rest stops and gift shops. Instead, he got a legitimate mountain trail with stairs carved into cliffs. 2 kilometers in, he sat down, looked up the trail difficulty rating, saw it was moderate to strenuous, and decided he'd been fraudulently lured into an extreme sports activity. He called his lawyer in Florida. From the mountainside, his lawyer told him Italian hiking trails aren't subject to American consumer protection laws. He said that's exactly the problem, and that someone needs to regulate European tourism to protect Americans from surprise physical exertion. Tried to get the U.S. consulate to issue a formal complaint to Italy about trail difficulty disclosure requirements. When that didn't work, he hired a local kid to carry him back to the village, piggyback style, for 80 euros. The kid was 14 and weighed maybe 50 kilos. This man was at least 95. They made it about 200 meters before the kid's mother found out and made him stop. The American is now convinced there's a secret motorized trail that locals use, and tourists are deliberately directed to the hard path as hazing. He's threatening to write a book called Europe's War on American Mobility. First chapter is about how cobblestones are a conspiracy. So next time you're planning a European vacation, maybe check if the city was built before cars were invented. Just a thought. And if you see stairs, maybe don't assume they're optional. Because I promise you, Prague isn't installing an escalator to the castle, no matter how many emails you send. Though honestly, at this point, watching Americans discover that walkable cities exist is the most reliable entertainment Europe has.